No justice.
No peace.
No justice.
No peace.
Black lives.
Matter.
Black lives.
Matter.
Can you get me at the back okay? Thank you. We're going to get started in a minute. My name is Bilal. Many people in the community know me as Blitz. I'm a music artist. But I'm also a hard-working young man, and I've come up in the community. I used to live in a town called Marlow, just up the road, but I've been well and truly ingrained and raised in Wycombe for most of my life. And we've got some guest speakers up here today, but firstly, when everyone's settled, I just want to get started with a 1-minute silence, because today is 3 years since the Grenfell disaster, which still hurts many communities all around, not just in London, throughout the UK and around the world. And I also want to, in this 1-minute silence, have a think about what we're here for and the injustice that we're facing. On the 6th of June, we were in London marching, peaceful protest, and it was a really liberating day for everyone. But when I came back home, all I heard was violence. I didn't see any of that while I was there. I was there for 6 hours. And to me, it just showed me even more and opened my eyes up to the narrative that is being portrayed of black people. And in particular at the moment, the Black Lives Matter movement. We're all here for peace, are we not?
Yes.
So I'll give you the heads up in a minute. I want to also think about 2 sisters that we lost on that very day. Many of you might know, some of you might not. They are from Buckinghamshire. Biba Henry, she worked for the council, and her sister were tragically lost in Wembley. They'd gone to attend a birthday party and never made it home. Their bodies were found in a park. And for me, it's not even the fact that the news aren't talking about it, which they always seem to leave things out, but we aren't talking about it. And we aren't pushing for them to talk about it. So,
no justice,
No peace.
no justice,
No peace.
So, can we have a 1-minute silence, please? Thank you.
thank you.
No justice,
No peace,
no racist,
police,
no justice,
no peace,
no racist,
police,
Black lives,
matter,
Black lives,
matter,
say it again, Black lives.
Matter.
Black lives,
Matter.
How's everyone feeling? Feels good to be here today amongst the multicultural society and everyone pulling together, united as one. But I must say that if you asked me a week ago, 2 weeks ago, how I was feeling, I was fed up. I was tired of everything that I was seeing, and the death of George Floyd just topped that all off to the point that I was really boiling over. Now I've got some friends that might think, you're mixed race, why are you so offended by that? But I'm not mixed race, I'm black. I was raised I was brought up with black culture. My mum is a white woman, but she very much embraced black culture all her life. She didn't really know her family as a youngster. Her dad died in the war, and she was raised by a man from Barbados, a black man. My dad is a black African man, and he taught me my rights, and he taught me that society isn't always going to be fair. But you don't have to go with that narrative of being the angry black boy that they want you to be. You can be your own man, and you can treat people fairly, and you can learn from the relationship that you see around you. My mom and my dad, an interracial couple, as they like to say. I really learned from them. And I think society as a whole can learn that unity is our strength. Unified, we can do so much more. And it's, again, it makes me so happy to see so many different faces here today. So thank you for that. One thing I'm not, though, is I'm not tired. I'm hearing a lot of people saying they're tired. We have to learn to energize ourselves, because the only way we're going to get progress is to find that energy. You know, I'm grateful that a lot of people have made the time to come down here and, you know, be amongst us, but why is that? Why, you know, I do question that. Why is it? Because you really want to stand in solidarity with us?
Yes,
I'm asking.
Yes.
That's good to hear. Because, you know, at times we've seen our elders. I learn a lot from my elders. I've learned from my dad. I've learned from Starboy. I've learned from Lennox. I've learned from Errol. I've learned from Jay. There's been many groups that have come and gone. And we learn from what they did right, but we also need to learn from them what they did wrong. And it's not just because they had it harder than us, because every generation we know has their different battles to face. And right now we've got the biggest battle on our hands with this COVID thing, and I think in a funny way it's uniting us even more. We've got more time to fight against injustice and fight for what is rightfully ours. In the 70s, my dad fought against the oppression of the National Front. I put this on my socials the other day. He rounded up a few of his friends because they heard that the National Front were doing a march in High Wycombe. They arrived at the train station, I think it was 15th of April 1976. And they came down with their newspapers, with their agenda written on them. I've got the pictures, you can check them on my socials. They had their newspapers which mentioned the word immigration, immigrants. Isn't that funny that in 2020 that's the same agenda they're trying to push on us? That they are the troublemakers. They put us in a box, whether that's immigrant, terrorist, black, brown, BAME. I'm not that. I'm not for that. The message we want to give today is that we can be unified, we can unite, and we can move forward together as one, as a community. It's funny, I was thinking about it this morning, but community is a mashup of two words. Communication and unity. And if we don't communicate, then we're not going to be united. So we need to think about these words, people, and think about what they really mean. My dad won his battle eventually, not on that day. He was actually beaten up, not only by the National Front, he was beaten up by the police. And these are stories I lived with growing up. And my upbringing was, as much as my dad taught me, whatever happened to him, that's his story. Make my own history. But I've had to live with that. And sometimes you bottle up all this anger, frustration. I think a lot of the younger generation, I'm speaking to you lot now, you don't need to bottle up all these feelings and these emotions. Talk to someone. Talk to us. You may feel that we don't relate to you You may feel that we're OGs, as we get called. I'm young. I might have kids, I might have my wife, I might have a family, but I'm young. And I've got energy. And I will stand up for what's right. And racism is not right. And we need to defeat them once again. Just like my dad did in the 70s. We've got some guest speakers coming up. They're going to talk about their past and present experiences. I want you to really just lend them an ear. If you're expecting to come down here and get violent, get angry, this is not it. We're trying to find solutions here. We're not trying to highlight the problems, but we want to talk about the problems. Because the first rule of finding a solution is to acknowledge there's a problem. So, I'd like for you to give a warm welcome to my sister, Kia Bing Davis. She's an impact coach, spiritual counselor, and an author.
Thank you so much. I want to thank the organizers for inviting me to be here today. There's a lot of you here. I'm super nervous. So,
don't be.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. I'm going to do this talk today. I'm going to start with the breath and end with the breath. So, can you help me out?
Yeah.
Okay. So I want you to blow out and then take a deep breath in. And then I want you to hold that for 52 seconds. It's a long time, right? Time's up by 10. 526 seconds. 8 minutes, 46 seconds. That was the amount of time that Derek Chauvin pressed his knee on George Floyd's neck. As millions watched this execution, a wave of grief swept around the world. Why has Floyd's death in particular sparked such outrage and despair well outside the borders of the United States where I'm from? In addition to the barbaric nature of this crime, I believe it was our own state of being that played into this. I believe thanks to the coronavirus, we were left with many, many less distractions. We were inside our own homes, no sports, no pubs, no commuting to and from work. Kids were at home. So we didn't have these distractions to be able to brush this under the carpet anymore. We had to face what was happening in our own world, our own communities, within our own selves, and those spaces where we had put Band-Aids on before we no longer could. We began to remember all of the insidious ways that racism affected us, and it felt like, this is personal to me now. This is personal. I've had enough of this, and so we mobilized. But what was it that really sparked us to move? Well, I believe it was pain and trauma, and that's why I'm standing here today. My grandmother. Hello. Okay. My grandmother. Okay. My grandmother Althea was born in 1920 in Wilmington, Delaware, and she will be 100 years old in December. Talk about legacy, talk about legacy. So I was talking with her as she was watching the funeral of George Floyd, and she said, I can't believe I'm still watching this kind of thing happen. All of those times that your mother got arrested, marching was for nothing. What was it all for if they can still kill us in the streets like dogs? Nothing will ever happen to them. See, she had experienced and seen so much in her life that she felt resigned that nothing would change. So then in the 60s, my mother became an activist, marching with Jesse Jackson and sitting in on lunch counters in Greensboro, so that I could move freely, unencumbered in this world, so that I had freedom of movement and I could decide to move to the UK and live in High Wycombe. So I told her, yeah, much has changed, it has, but also in that moment I realized that that overwhelming sadness and futility that I felt coming up in me was attached to a long string attached to her. So in my work, I work a lot with trauma, mainly helping adults to heal childhood trauma. So I started digging deeper and started to look at intergenerational trauma. And I found post-traumatic slave syndrome, a body of work from Dr. Joyce DeGroy in America, and she talks about how epigenetics and how you can transmit through your DNA dreams, nightmares, and trauma. A study was done with the Holocaust survivors, and it was shown that second and third generational descendants had genetic markers in their DNA that would corrupt their cells, and the stress profile of their cells made them much more susceptible to PTSD, obesity, hypertension, and insulin resistance. The Holocaust was from 1941 to 1945, 4 years. So we can see the effects of trauma on second and third generations, it's evident. The slave trade lasted for 300. But the trauma didn't stop there. When the slaves were freed, we know about laws and practices that sprang up that decimated individuals and communities, and the residual trauma from both covert and overt racism continued to be experienced from the 1800s until today. So what do we do to save our descendants? We need to heal this now. So where do we start? We start by no longer being silent. We start by telling our stories. So I wanted to speak with you today about the difference between muting and transmuting. Some people will want you to be silent about this problem because it may offend or cause discomfort. Are you still talking about that? It happened so many years ago. Things are so much better for you now. You have so many more opportunities. What are you still complaining about? Well, all of that might be true, but there is still a lot of room for deep and sustained healing in order for us to effect meaningful change. Muting is the dampening down of something, to muffle it, to make it less potent and more silent. We have had our voices and our stories, our hurts, our pains, and our fears muted for centuries. And that has trickled down to us in this moment. Things that stay in the dark cannot be healed unless they are brought into the light. So we must speak up and tell our stories. These stories must also be heard and received. So those of you listening, especially those of you not of African descent, you must receive these stories and allow them to be told. Own your own uncomfortable feelings without preventing them from the exercise of this muscle, our voices. Words have power to harm or heal, so let them be for healing. Then instead of offering solutions and giving your opinions for how to fix largely what will be your own discomfort, just hold that space and ask, what can I do? The answer might be just listen to me, or it may be more. But ask the question and then wait for the answer. And those of you of non-African descent, you can start by speaking up too. A friend of mine told me of a conversation that he had this week with a work colleague. And his colleague said they were waiting for a third guy to join the conversation, and he said, he's going to join the conversation. Have you spoken to him before? No was the answer. He's a bit rough around the edges. He might curse a bit. he also might be a little bit racist, so you might have to bite your tongue. And my friend said, I'm not going to do that. If he says anything racist, I'm going to call him out. So that's what I'm talking about. No more biting of tongues in the face of racism. This is no longer just our fight, it's yours too. What kind of world do you want to leave your children? Divided or united? The revolution needs voices, especially yours, even if it's uncomfortable, even if you feel like the odd one out. We have felt like that for generations, and it ends now. This opening of discussion will help you transmute those emotions that we feel, that pain, that sadness, that anger, that futility, into hope. And that's where it starts, with hope. But what next? Next comes the deeper healing and your well-being. The need to heal and protect your well-being is paramount for the revolution. This is a marathon, not a sprint. You will need to be well in order to maintain focus and stamina. There are practices which can change not only your mental and emotional well-being, but also physically and spiritually as well. There are numerous forms of meditation that are enormously helpful. Going for walks, getting out in nature, yoga, tai chi, qigong are all practices that heal the mind, emotion, and body and bring things into balance. If you want to go deeper, speak to your elders, your grandmothers, your grandfathers, healing circles and therapists who can guide you through the feelings that will come up as you run this race toward equality. You don't have to wait for anyone else to heal you. You can take responsibility for yourself. Not only for yourself, but for future generations. We need you to be strong, to process your sadness and anger, so that you can mobilize and not get tired, so that you can develop allies where you've not before, because you can enter this conversation from a place of personal empowerment. And as you take responsibility for your healing, you may open yourself up to other solutions within you that were not previously in your awareness. So let that begin today. So I want you to look around where you are now. Look to your left and look to your right. These are people that have a willingness to also look at this issue. These are your allies. You each have a talent and a gift to bring to the table. Tell someone yours and listen to theirs. Is there some synergy or some room for collaboration? This is where change starts. Grassroots together. We can't keep doing the same thing and expecting different results. So if your gift is speaking, how can you find some stages to occupy or join with someone to create your own? That's right, little man. That's the future there, that's right. If education is your thing, how can we bring more representation to the classroom? Not only in teachers, but challenge the narrative that children are taught. The lower expectations of teachers, and the systems that are stacked against Black children regardless of economic background. If social media is your thing, how can you create a platform that serves the discussion about how we move forward? If nutrition is your interest, how can we bring more healthy choices and food wealth to communities that need it the most? If you're a gifted artist, how can you use your talent to inspire others and help heal our hearts, bodies, and minds and bring people together? We all bring something to the table, but your ability to discover solutions within yourself will be hampered if you are stuck in stress or anger mode. You must begin your own internal process to understand and heal the depths of your trauma, so the next generation benefits not only from external racial diversity, but internal racial diversity as well. So I'd like to start that healing journey with you today by breathing. And I said we'd finish with some breath as well. So I'd invite you to take your hands and cross them over your heart. And then close your eyes. Take a deep breath in. How does your heart feel? Heavy? Is there pain, sadness, anger, bewilderment, confusion? Just breathe into that. Recognize that and allow that to be. Keep breathing. Take a deep breath in through your hands. And imagine you breathe in the air, and as you do, it clears that space. Just keep breathing. And then as you breathe, open up your eyes and look to your right or your left. Really connect with that person that you can see. Look into their eyes as they breathe and you breathe. This is the space where healing begins. Because Black lives matter. Black children matter. Black mothers matter. Black fathers matter. Black voices matter. We all matter. Be heard, be seen, be strong, be healed, be united. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sister Kia. It's a pleasure to have you here with us.
Black lives matter.
Lives matter.
Black lives matter.
Black lives matter.
Black lives matter.
Black lives matter.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I don't know about anyone else, but that was therapeutic, man. That was beautiful. And that's what we need to encourage. We've all got trauma, and we don't want to let it ruin our society and ruin what's been built up. Next up, I've got Sister Sadia Hussein. She's had over 20 years experience in the private sector. She's specialized in behavior change.
Public sector.
Public sector, sorry. And she's here to speak to us about her experiences.
I've got a coordinating mic. Hello everybody, and thank you for coming out today, and thank you for giving us the opportunity to speak today. Thank you to the organisers, but a massive thank you to all of our elders that went before us to enable us to be able to sit out here and have this conversation today. So I'm really nervous, but I grew up in a High Wycombe that didn't exist. And you'll understand why it didn't actually exist. I was in a bubble. It was a strange childhood. My father had 3 best friends, a white man, a black man, and a Pakistani man. It sounds like a bad joke, right? But it turned out like one as well. We knew there were differences, but these were something of intrigue and conversation. Differences that didn't actually mean anything because they were still my uncles. But here's where the joke goes bad. Middle school. All of a sudden, my world became huge. There were long corridors, there were 3 different playgrounds. I was only 8 and I had 3 different playgrounds. And it should have been a time of excitement. But actually it was more of a time of division. Groups and cliques that felt alien to me were beginning to form in these playgrounds. Things that I didn't actually understand. Middle school is where race divisions became more apparent. I started hearing language that included us and them. I remember walking home and being asked, "Where is your Saddam now?" by grown men. I didn't know where he was in the first Gulf War. I didn't know where he was in the second, guys. But that didn't stop them from asking me. And I was about 9. By the time I was 12, I was being asked questions around the way I dressed. And my whole world had started to change. And now I could see the Wycombe that I had been protected from. Perhaps at this point I should explain that my family situation was a bit unique. We weren't really as integrated perhaps into the Asian community or any community. So that afforded us a bubble. That ostracization afforded us a bubble where we could choose who we surrounded to be surrounded by. So growing up, I was able to hold on to those friends from formative years, and it didn't matter what their background color was. But I had a rude awakening in secondary school, where because of statistics and them wanting to actually get the kids with the grades to actually get the grades, they decided it was easier to separate us. I didn't go to school in the 60s, the 70s, or the 80s. I went to secondary school in the 90s. I was forced away from my friends, and these were friends that had carried me through childhood trauma. I was forced away from friends who had actually been by my side when I went through the toughest of times. I was forced away not by other people, not by community leaders, but my deputy head, my tutor, my year head. And when I refused to comply, my mum was brought into school, and she was told, Mrs. Hussain, it's unlikely that your daughter will succeed whilst she's friends with these girls. Their culture is different. Your culture is different. And then they spread more stereotyping and hate-mongering in my mother's heart. I was easier to control when I was with the other Asian girls because we were seen as submissive. This is something I understand now. At the time, I could not understand why I could no longer hang around with my black and white friends. I was easier to focus in on my education. So why am I sharing this with you today? Because now let's flip it into their perspective. Let's flip the narrative into the perspective of my friends. My friends thought I'd rejected them. My friends thought I wanted to be with my own. A culture and a community was imposed on me, and it wasn't even by my family. So then I started to understand when I was a bit older what this was actually about. My former friends now made racist comments towards me, and there we had it. Teenage girls were divided and conquered, fulfilling the destiny that someone else had designed for us. Do you understand why I'm actually saying this today? Because these divisions are designed, they're taught, they're enforced in ways that we don't even pick up on. From the ways communities are housed, to the ways that we are manipulated through media and marketing, the role models that are enforced on us. My story isn't mine alone. It's the story of men and women, boys and girls of many generations. It's the story of the prejudice and hate we have displayed towards each other from all communities, be it Asian against black, white against Asian, and black against white. So I'm simply asking, can we please stop, take a moment, stop playing other people's games, and get on the same team now? These subtle cracks have opened into deep divisions, and at the crux of it are all the feelings of hurt and rejection. We were separated by design, but we deepened that divide because we were unable to deal with our feelings of hurt and rejection. There is a need for all of us to become more emotionally aware of ourselves and others so that we do not play into the hands of those that want to control us. Hate and anger stem from fear and rejection. And as an anger management therapist, that's one of the things that I used to work with gangs. And a lot of them didn't even know why they were fighting. They were just hurt. So until we decide that we're going to take a step towards becoming a bit more emotionally intelligent and working together towards that goal, we're not going to start the healing process.
Yeah.
Now, members of the Asian community, I'm so glad to see you here, because I mean this with love. In High Wycombe, we arrived in the 60s and some earlier, but we didn't arrive before anybody else. The Caribbean community was here. They led the way and they set a foundation for us that made it easier for us to thrive. Our men walked side by side, worked long hours and protected each other. Their presence here made our lives easier. In those times, our women remained at home. It's now time our women, as nurturers and carers, show the community the way again. We start by opening our hearts and minds and challenging the myths and prejudices we are allowing to fester in our homes. To stand shoulder to shoulder with every member of this community that is facing adversity, I ask all the women here to remember that in your arms, your babies find their first university. You have a choice as to what you teach them about each other and how you empower them. And in turn, you have the power to shape the future leaders of tomorrow. Don't for a second underestimate the power that you have right now. I want to share something personal. So this year's been pretty tough for me. He is actually my neighbour. Prima's a dear friend of mine, so they know what's been going on. And I faced a lot of discrimination this year. But I wasn't sure if I could fight it. I wasn't sure if I could stand against it, because after 40 years of doing it, I'm tired. And I know Brother Bilal was saying about being tired, but I am tired. So, you know, and I also wondered whether I could put my decades-long career at risk and my reputation on the line. But there were 3 local women who were instrumental in empowering me. Kia Bing Davis, Jen Joseph, 2 strong black women, and Ifat Nawaz, a strong Pakistani woman. They're the ones who inspired me to speak my truth. My team wasn't based on race, and because of their support, I'm now not only fighting my fight, but my colleagues I've left behind are fighting with me. Black, white, and Asian together. So like I said to... Thank you. Like I said to Bilal yesterday, it takes one person to lead the way and a movement starts. We need to come together and heal that pain, that hurt and the rejection we've felt over the years. We as the Asian community have excelled. We have still more opportunities than our black counterparts. Even though they came here first, they eased the way, they walked with us. So how did we leave them behind? We share memes about race and equality and our respective scriptures, but we don't act on them. We still have issues with integration and equality. I know things are changing, I know we're trying, and we are reaching out. But we must reflect and we must address the prejudice in our own community and in our respective communities. In fact, I say this to all of the communities represented here today. The only way we can move forward is to remind ourselves that together we are stronger, and there has been hurt on all sides. But right now, without a single doubt in my mind, there is one community suffering more than all the others, and that's the black community, and we must stand with them. We must remind our young and our old of our shared history. We must fight for equality and against oppression together. I've pledged to support these guys with issues around compliance and funding for any project they want to set up, because that's the skill I can offer. I want you to commit to offering them something, even if it's just your kindness and your prayers. And if you want to stay abreast of what's going on, then Prima's sitting there willing to take your details. But before I finish, I want to leave you with some ideas to move on together. Because if protesting alone worked, we wouldn't have gone to war in Iraq. The families of Grenfell wouldn't have waited for up to 3 years to be housed and wait for justice. Fathers would have equal rights, and we would not have inequality across all sections of our communities. Our action must be positive, it must be led by the heart and the mind. Our leaders must represent us all, and we must be represented and our voices heard in every corridor of power. So I ask that you stick around at the end and network, get to know each other from 2 meters distance. The other thing you can do is in your home start to choose the role models that you're reflecting on. Spend a week, just spend 1 week looking at a different role model you wouldn't normally look at. Look at their histories and talk to your children about them. Real role models, inventors, scientists, philosophers, leaders, kings and queens. And at the bare minimum, be present with one another. But let's move forward with our elders and with each other. Thank you.
No justice?
No peace.
No justice?
No peace.
Black lives?
Matter.
Black lives?
Matter.
Thank you so much, Sadia, for stepping up and talking to us. I believe she signed up yesterday. We did a talk in Marlow. And it was for me, it was very liberating. I felt a huge sense of relief, because I had my doubts going into that, because like I mentioned to you at the start, so much work has gone on in the past, and for a while it's almost like we've become divided, which is I think what the powers that be want. But are we going to allow that to happen any longer?
No.
Are we going to allow them to separate us and keep us in our little bubbles, in our little groups, in our BAME as they call it? No. Thank you. So, one of the sisters that spoke yesterday, she goes by the name of Dee Whitehouse. She's a member of the community and a mother. And her story yesterday touched so many hearts, and I think she's got a few words to say, and I think you'll appreciate it. So, huge welcome to Dee.
Hello and welcome. Thank you so much for coming out. This was only planned in a week. We wish we had more time to gather the community. I'm not a natural speaker, as you can see, but I have my little girl with me for support. This is a hard subject. It spanned a lot of generations. I just want to speak to our allies and tell them about our stories. Mine began when I came over here at 4 years old from Africa, and I was full of curiosity and hope about learning new cultures and new foods. And by 6 years old, when I spoke the language fluently to understand the level of rejection that I had to face, I found it difficult because I was filled with this insatiable quest to learn. And it started for me at school. I was told my hair was dirty and I should tie it back and messy. I was put at the bottom of the class. And I thought, well, maybe I'm not so bright. My sister's a doctor. My brother has the mind of an engineer. But we were all put at the bottom of the class. So it wasn't what we were doing in class. We were let down in so many different ways. Thank God for this incredible community that we had in London, where I grew up. There was this Nigerian man, Mr. Ola Talabi. He was the kind of guy you didn't want to cross as a child. He would use the ruler if you misbehaved. But what the community didn't understand is why we were being pushed down, why we were told we were nothing and we would be nothing. So they set up a Sunday school. I hated it, of course. I wanted to be out on my bicycle like all my other friends, but I grew to love it because there I was valued, there I was encouraged. I was told I could be anything and I can do anything, and we shouldn't have that. It shouldn't even exist. But a lot of African families and black families knew. They knew that our schools were failing us. They knew my brother, as a black man, was told he would be nothing. He was not intelligent, and he was always pushed to be last. And that kind of psychology damages us all. I also want to tell you, sorry, it's a very emotional subject, but about my brother's story, because I spoke about it yesterday, but I felt so emotional I couldn't get everything out. It's an important story because it teaches us why children cannot trust the police, are weary of them, when they should be embracing it just like every other white person. I should be able to pick up a phone and say, hey, I'm in trouble, I need you. Not, I fear you. If I see you, my instinct is to run, but I won't run. I will lie down because I don't know if you have a gun. My brother was a young man, filled with hope, in a suit, going to an interview one day. And he felt so proud, he did well. He was so proud, he said, I'm not going to take the bus back. I'm going to use the money I have for that to buy a homeless person a meal. The police saw him, beat him, and told him he must be selling drugs. By the time he came home, My mother's eyes were weeping. My brother, fists were curled. He could not speak. And when I said, "Who did this to you? I'm going to call the police. I can't believe this." The outrage was filled with silence. And when they told me, my heart broke. Suddenly I realized I was the Red Indian that was always being chased. I was the one who was always the bad guy. I was the one who was a drug dealer, and in their eyes I was nothing. So as a child, it's hard to rise above that when it's so systematic. You see it every day. But I had a strong African woman by my side, and my mother taught me that you must work 10 times harder. Whatever they think of you, you think better. Whatever they say about you, you prove them wrong, not with angry words, not with violence, but with intelligence and integrity and kindness. When I moved to Bucks, about 6-7 years now, it lulled me into a false sense of hope. I was thinking it's a countryside, it's not London, it's not as intense. I had to ride my bicycle up and down my road. I wasn't allowed to go further. There was a lot of fear of a lot of things. I was thinking, I still have to have that conversation with my daughter. What age should I start to tell her? Others will see her differently. Others will think she is less than, and I must build her up. 3 years old, I taught her, black is beautiful, black is strong. At 4 years old, she comes to me from the park and says, "The children won't let me play. They said my skin looks like poo and I can't go down the slide, Mummy. I don't want to be black." It broke my heart. I had to search again and say to her, black is beautiful, black is strong. These stories are important because you need to see the systematic oppression that a lot of black people face from the age of 0. A lot of them have to make their own hope. They have to build themselves up, because as soon as they step out of that door, they will be told things just because of the color of their skin. There are petitions behind us. Please scan them before you leave. They are to make things better, because this is just the first step. Our gathering is just the first step. We are not going away. Our voices will be heard. And it's not only to the allies that I'm speaking, but to my fellow black people. If you believe all lives matter, that means Christian lives matter that are black, Muslim lives matter that are black, LGBTQ lives matter that are black, trans lives matter that are black. You cannot ask for help and assistance to rise when you will not let your brother rise with you. We are in this together because black lives matter. Black lives matter.
Black lives matter. Black lives matter.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Well done, Dee!
That's a perfect example of why we're here today. People stepping up, speaking up. When we're asking people to speak up, even amongst ourselves, I can't just tell the man that's never spoken up for us to speak up for us. I need to tell our own. After yesterday, I was exhausted. I was tired, like I said, I was fed up. But the fight, the struggle continues. I can't let that exhaustion win me over. I could stay at home and play Xbox, like many of the young brothers are doing. I could make an excuse, But now is not the time for excuses. Now is the time to build up courage, to encourage each other, and to move together, unified, united, and building the community, rebuilding the community. And we're not undoing the work that's been done before. I mentioned one of our elders earlier on in my speech, Starboy, and I'm hoping that he can come up and bless the mic with a few words. You guys need to react.
Good afternoon. I'm not used to public speaking, so my apologies. I'm not dressed for the occasion. My apologies for that again. The reason why I'm not dressed for the occasion, because I only known about this about 3 hours ago, that this is actually taking place. Which is a bit sad, because I think when we do things as a community, the organisers have to actually consult the community, so that a lot more of our communities, whether it's the Asian community, the African Caribbean community, the African community, needs to be present. Because people looking in, saying, okay, there's just a few people, so we don't pay them no mind. That's going to blow over within a couple of weeks. And like one of the speakers said earlier, for me, this has been a marathon in my life, living in Britain, living anywhere in the world actually, because we always seem to be second class. Being taken the books doesn't really mean nothing. We just blow away like the wind. All I'm saying, I'm really heartened today to be here, because I see so much young people. So that gives me heart that things are actually going to change. But please, for me, things can only change from a process of knowledge. And we all need to understand that racism does not exist without the word race. I do not call myself a color, because I'm not black. I'm an African man. I'm proud to say that. I'm an African. I'm an African, born in Barbados, living in the UK. And to me, color is a wave that keeps us down. We are people. We talk about race. Race does not actually exist without the word ism at the end of it. Racism. We as a people, everybody, whether we benefit from it or we stop from aspiring from it, we need to change. We say there's one race, it's the human race. And unfortunately, when we say this human race, we go to our education institutions. We're saying, okay, we've got the black race, the white race, the Chinese race. So we all start from a process where we're educated to think that we're different. We're not different. All we are as a people is that we have a variety of cultures that we do. We have a Caribbean culture, we have an African culture, we have an Asian culture, and then we have religion. It doesn't make us different. It's just what we're born into in terms of our culture. But we can skip cultures. I can immerse myself within the Asian culture, but I cannot be Asian because I'm not. I'm a human being. So we're going to look at changing the word race into culture, because we all can immerse ourselves, and we have. I love Indian food. I love Chinese food. We go all over the place. I got friends from many different communities. It's about us being one, a people. And that's where we're going to actually make change. There's 2 books I want to recommend for my European friends to read. It's called The West versus the Rest of Us. What's the author name? Chilwezi. I think that everybody from the non-white community should read that book, because it gives you understanding how we as a people, has been looted and abused for many years. I'm not going to say that. I'm not going to make apologies because your historians also said it. We are the first civilization on this planet Earth, the African civilization. Yes. All of our knowledge you have taken from us. Yeah? If you look at terms of your building, look at the roofs. Look in medicine, science, astronomy, we are the originators. So when we say it's for the world, not just for individual people. And just bear in mind, when you see me on the street, my name is not Starboy. Because everybody knows me by Starboy. You ask them, what's my name? Starboy. My name is Fillmore DeCourcy Miller. Okay? It's a nickname that they stuck to me, but I think it's important that people don't always call you Starboy. Because when Starboy is not dead, Fillmore is dead, nobody's going to come and pay their respects. One love.
Next up, it's my brother from another mother, best footballer in the land. Josh Parker, everybody.
Yes, everybody, I hope everyone's well. Just want to say before I start, I was a bit hesitant to speak because there's so many opinions and views on how we conquer this whole situation, but there's so many facets to it, and we have to understand that it's not going to change overnight. And so I didn't go off on a different tangent. I just wrote some stuff down and I just hope you can all take it in. But the whole emphasis is how can we change the narrative? So right now we're living in a digital era where we are force-fed what we're supposed to think and feel. If you don't see it on the news, then you see it on Facebook. If you don't see it on Facebook, you see it on Twitter, Instagram, all of these different social medias. More so than ever, it is easier for the media to drive an agenda or a stereotype according to whatever narrative they want played out. When we sit and we watch the news, we allow that to be the basis of why we're allowed to feel a certain type of way or what way we're supposed to feel. Our hub for info is TV programs. TV programs are essentially, well, the definition of the word program is a set of measures or activities with a particular long-term aim. And it feels for too long now that the narrative or the aim has been the oppression of melanated people. It's time to unlearn and relearn. Up until now, your only source of information about me would have been from someone who's never lived my life, never walked in my shoes, never experienced the things that I've experienced. But logic would tell me that everything you think that you may know about me is based on what you've seen on TV and the messages that other people that don't know me put across about me. Right now, holding this mic, I'm Joshua Parker. I've been a professional athlete for 10 years. I'm a father of 3. I'm qualified in biochemistry, naturopathic nutrition. But as soon as I lift a hoodie over my head, thank you. As soon as I lift a hoodie over my head, that changes. That goes out the window. I'm a thug. I'm a gangster. I'm intimidating. So that tells me that the problem isn't me. It's the perception that someone's fed to you about me. And stereotypes are a powerful war weapon. So the question that I have for everyone here is, how do we create our own narrative? And when I say our own narrative, I mean in High Wycombe. I don't mean in London or globally. How can we change a narrative where we live? I feel like we need more youth clubs. I don't see it. I don't see these things anymore. I don't see it. We need more affordable activities. We know how the world's getting. Everything's extortionate now. Even if you want to immerse yourself in something, most people can't afford it. We need more mass gatherings. We need more community influenced activities. We need more African and West Indian culture-based places that we can tune into. And me saying that isn't saying, oh, it's only for black people, whatever it is. It basically opens up the avenue for a larger cultural understanding. It allows people to hone into our culture, our heritage, our lineage, because more often than not, people get a third-party part of information about our culture, and we're told to suppress ours, so other people can tell it for us, tell our own narrative about our culture, which I don't think is right. So I think as a community, and I know Bilal and Prima are working on these things, we need to really start to embrace our culture and stop suppressing it. The only way people are going to make a narrative about us is if we give them the right one. So yeah, that's all I have to say.
Thank you. Well said. And those are just some of the ideas of the solutions we've got. We know what our problems are, but now is how do we face them and how do we tackle those issues? For long now we've been saying enough is enough. What are we actually going to do about it? We've got ideas, we've got petitions, as was mentioned earlier. We're trying to set up a foundation organization. Prima's over there, she's ready, logged in. The lady that's waving at you, she's ready to take names. So if you're with us and you want to fight this fight with us, this is not a trend. This is not a trending topic. This is not just Black Lives Matter. This is forever. This is us going forward. So our kids can benefit. Be the future, be the change that you would like to see. Even when you're dead and gone, your kids will live that. So, next up, we've got a sister, Sophie. She's here to say her piece. Give her a warm welcome.
Hello. I have a friend that is currently... Is that better? There we go. That is currently living in the BVI, but she attended a school in Marlow for 2 years, from 2017 to 2019. Please can you raise your hand if you have attended or do currently attend in a school in or around Marlow, whether that be a school here in High Wycombe or Bourne End or Henley. Please raise your hand. Now please keep your hand up if when joining the school you were nervous, anxious and maybe even a little bit scared. Finally, keep your hand up if your transition into this school was made more difficult for you due to the colour of your skin. My friend's name is Liv, and she shared a speech with me that she would like you all to listen to. I am a mixed race woman. I grew up in the Caribbean. This was a predominantly black society where all of my friends were either black or mixed race. We learned about racism in school and how it could happen to any single one of us outside of our Caribbean bubble. We learned how to prevent the spread of racism between ourselves and be kind to others regardless of their race. But then I moved to England. I was aware that it wouldn't be the same as the Caribbean, but I wasn't quite prepared for what it would actually be like. My very first day of school, I sat entirely alone amongst the sea of white faces, not seeing anyone who looked even a little bit like me. This was immediately intimidating because I knew that no one would understand my culture or where I came from. This proved to be true when my newfound friends would compare me to a camel or laugh at me because I had to buy a different colour nude for our drama performance. All I could do was laugh with them in the fear that if I called them out on it, I would be completely thrown out of the group. The only time I had the courage to stand up to this kind of behaviour was when one of my friends at the time continuously said the N-word. This was not okay with me at all. I told her to stop and explain what the word meant, and she told me, "It's my mouth, I can say what I want." When I heard that, I knew that this wasn't a place I wanted to be. I stopped going to school regularly, I stopped seeing friends, and I completely shut myself off from the outside world, because my home was the only place I felt like I was loved and that I belonged. Growing up as a multiracial woman was very difficult. My own white grandfather didn't think I was smart enough to go to school in England because I grew up in the Caribbean. All of my favourite TV shows and movies had white actors, every supermodel in the magazines were white, and all of the Barbie dolls I played with were white. I dressed up as Snow White when I was 5 and got told by the white side of my family that I should be Pocahontas instead, because I don't look enough like Snow White. This made me believe from a young age that people of colour will never be considered pretty, and that being white is the one thing that made women beautiful. I used to ask my own mother all the time why I wasn't white. It was clear that question had broken her heart. She'd always tell me that I am beautiful and there are so many people in the world that would love to look like me. I didn't believe it for a long time, but as I got older, I started to notice a lot of white people benefiting from black culture. I would see white women with their hair in braids, an example of cultural appropriation, and getting lip fillers, which are both beauty ideals inspired by black women. I noticed people enjoying the music I liked, and even calling black babies cute. But at what point do these babies turn from cute to scary? Why are they feared? My cousin has been a black man in England for over 30 years, and everywhere he goes, people clutch their purses a little tighter, hold their children a little closer, and for what? He is the sweetest man I know, but society will always view him as dangerous. This is why I encourage people to be kind and sign petitions against racism and police brutality. Tell your black and mixed friends that they are beautiful, that they deserve just as much as you do. Although I am not physically here today, I stand with all of you, and I am proud of every single one of you that is using your voice. Please continue to do this every day and teach your children, your children's children, and everyone you know that racism needs to stop. Black Lives Matter. Thank you.
Black Lives Matter.
Black Lives Matter.
Black Lives Matter.
Black Lives Matter.
Thank you very much. That story there about the school just reminded me that within the last couple of years, my daughters attend a certain school in High Wycombe, and I've had to deal with racism from the ages vary. So I've got one in nursery, and I've got some that are in year 3, year 4. And I've had about 3 or 4 instances at the school where they've had racial abuse. And it's like, it's almost a trend. It's almost like the kids are not being taught why it's wrong to say certain things. I've even had what is it, in year 4? It's like 6-year-old call my daughter a nigger. Which, to me, I can't be mad at the kid. I can't be mad at, I cannot be mad at a kid. But I had to go there and speak to someone, and even talking to the parent on that day, it's almost they didn't want to own up to what they've done. Oh, it must be a movie, it must be one of the other kids in the school. And that they might be right. So even then, I couldn't be mad at the parent, but what are the schools doing about it? What are the schools doing to educate them? I went in, I had a meeting, I was told I was militant, maybe too aggressive in my tone. So I tried a different approach. I tried to be strategic, which is, I think, the best way going forward. I spoke to the school council, and they said they're trying to implement workshops, and instead of after school detention, they'll have a detention where they'll educate the kids on black culture, but that didn't last too long, so it's not an ongoing thing. And I guess it's down to me to keep following up and making sure that when they say they're going to do something about it, they have to do something about it. That really just reminded me of that instance, and there's been many more in my life. I don't really want to go into it, but yeah, we've got a beautiful sister. Are you gonna go next? Sorry. My beautiful brother from another mother, otherwise known as Denzel. Give him a warm welcome, everyone.
Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon. So I thought I'd get out the way before I get more nervous. So Black Lives Matter, not because everyone else's life doesn't matter, but because ours doesn't seem to be equal in the eyes of the law and the police. And that needs to change. There needs to be change in the policing, and there needs to be change in the system and in the education system. Because I know the one way to stop someone from feeling superior, from feeling superior than the other, is by education. And there's not many African stories and history and African contribution to the world that's being told in schools. And because of that, that's forcing people, white people and other people, to feel, because of the current situation, that Africans didn't contribute to the world, and that creates a different level of racism. And I think that needs to change. And also, I know we're all here because of the killing of George, and we all saw that. But UK is not innocent as well. Over the last 20 years, there's been over 130 black men died in the hands of police without any justice. I myself, 2012, I was driving down High Wycombe, and I got pulled over. It was around 5 in the morning. I got pulled over by the police. I stopped the car, and he asked me, "Why is your fog lights on?" I said, "Because he was foggy." And then he asked for my, "Is this car yours?" I said, "Yes, it's my car." "Can I see your license and registration?" I said, "Yes, here's my license and registration." He said, "Why is your license different address than your car registration?" I said, "Well, I moved to Holland. I was playing football there, so my mum's moved, and that's why." Got on his phone and said, "Well, I'll have to take you in because I need to verify who you are." I said, "But I've just given you my details. I just leave it up there." He said, "No, you have to come with me." So he arrested me and took me to the police station in High Wycombe, and I thought it was just for questioning. But he actually put me in a cell for 8 hours. Without food, without drink, nothing. The next day, and my friend had to drive my car home. And the next day, they let me out. I called them again. I called the police up, the office. Said, "Why was I arrested? Have you found anything that was wrong with my license or my car?" No answer. Nothing. I just wasted 8 hours of my life for no reason. And what that did to me, that made me feel very angry. Made me feel very nervous. Every time I drive my car, I look at the back thinking, the police is gonna stop me. And the question that the police officer asked me when he pulled me over was, "Oh, how can you afford this nice car?" I said, "I work. I've always worked. I've always paid my taxes. I've never been arrested prior to that. I'm not a criminal." So these are the things that happens regularly, and that's the reason why you see young black men react to police the way when they pull them over. It's because they know they're pulling them over on the no grounds at all. It's a bullying tactics. And they use that to put them in a box to say, "Oh, you're being aggressive," when they're the one instigating aggression. And that needs to change. And it's time for us to fight against racism as a community, because we all have people of mixed heritage. I've got white friends, black, Asian friends. And if you see your friends being bullied or your friend being talked about behind their back and someone is being racist, it's your opportunity to tell them, "Stop being racist, that's racist." That's the only way we can change the society. If you don't speak up to your friends, you don't stand up to your family to say, what you're saying is racist, they think it's acceptable, and they tell another person, and that's how racism continues. So we need to speak up. We need to be uncomfortable. It's time for us to have these uncomfortable conversations. That's the only way we can move forward in this society. We all want a world where our children can play together. Because children, my son will see a young white boy or Asian boy, and he will just immediately, first instinct is to go play. At what point does that change to where they start fearing each other? It's because of the education and the way we're teaching them at home to see differences, and that needs to change. And also, one of the funniest thing and most ignorant thing I hear is when people tell you, "Oh, if you don't like it in this country, go back to your country." How can I go back to my country? This is my home. I pay my taxes here. My ancestors died to make this country wealthy as it is right now. You only have to look in history and look how Britain was before slavery. And not saying this for anyone to feel guilty, because I know sometimes when I speak to my white friends and co-workers, as soon as you mention slavery, they feel that sense of guilt. We're past that. I know no one here owned slaves. Don't know if your ancestors did, but that's the past. We don't want you to feel guilt. We want to move forward. That's what we want to do. But we have to take that responsibility of moving forward together. So this is our home, and we have to make do with what we have, and to be united and change the world and create the world that we all want to see, and create a future which is brighter than this, because none of us like it. So let's change the world. Black Lives Matter.
Black Lives Matter.
Thanks, Liz. There's always context to the stories. There's always something that happened that you might not know. So when you see the images, don't just fall for it. Find out why. And one thing you said there about have a conversation. We need to encourage more conversations. Talk to the man. Talk to the kid that you've seen being arrested, and don't just judge him and say he's a thug or he's a criminal. He might be involved in criminal activities, but that's all he's ever known. He might be throwing a stone, but he may have been raised with 100 stones being thrown at him. So that's all he's ever known, is to react to the hardship he's had. So don't judge, and think about the context, because everyone has their story to tell. Next up, I love this woman. Sister Yvonne. Give it up for Sister Yvonne.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you all for coming out. So many beautiful people from beautiful cultures, but we are all one human race.
Yes.
So I want to give you a bit of my story. It's my mum's story, really. So my mum is English, and my dad is mixed race Jamaican. So my dad is Indian, African, Dutch, and Spanish. So I have a little piece of everybody. Okay? The best. So in 60s, my mum was in Marlow. She had an affair with my dad, who was a hot RAF man in his uniform and ting, right? So then I came along in Marlow. There was no other black babies in Marlow. She was pushing me down the high street. People were spitting on me as a baby. She got ran out of Marlow because she had me. She also had 2 brothers for me. We were chased around England by people throwing sticks and stones through her window because she had a black man in her bed. Every few months, we had to move. So I didn't have a school that I settled in. So now I'm in Marlow as a grown woman. This only happened 2 years ago. Someone called me foreign. What are you doing, foreign? I'm like, I was born in Marlow, so you might be more foreign than me. So now I had a phone call 4 years ago at work. The lady on reception said, I have a strange man on the phone. He's got a really weird accent, but he's asking for you in a different name. She didn't know the name was my mum's maiden name. This man was in New Zealand. It was my half-brother, my white half-brother that my mother had to leave behind. She hadn't seen or heard from him for 40 years. For 40 years, she'd sent a birthday card and a Christmas card, and he never got them. For 40 years, I didn't have a brother. But he found me on Facebook. And he emailed me and told me everything about my family. He told me about pushing me in the buggy in Marlow. About my dad and how gracious and good my black dad was to him. Now, we lost contact because when he moved to New Zealand, there was no Facebook, there was no emails. He found me on Facebook. 2 years ago, I reunited him with my mother. Sorry. He has a family. He married an Ethiopian girl. He married an Ethiopian queen and has children looking exactly like my children. His comment was, we're just ahead of everybody. Everybody's gonna be mixed race one day. That's what I'm praying for, whether it's in your heart or on your skin. We're all one human race. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that touching story. I think the next message is going to be an important one because we've spoken about the trauma, and as Sister Kia said earlier, it's not PTSD, it's almost like we're thinking back to slavery and it still affects us today. And I think that is something that we need to tackle within our community. Mental health issues are rife in the community, and whenever it comes to black people, they never associate us with mental health. And in fact, it's a bit of a stigma in our culture, in our society. So my next speaker, next guest is my sister from another mister. She works in mental health. Jordana, everybody.
Hi everyone, thank you all for coming here today. I just want to speak about a few things within mental health. I've worked at a mental health hospital for 5 years now, between the ages of 12 to 18-year-old children. I've seen a lot of injustices there, underlying racism between staff, the way they're treated, between the way patients are treated as well, especially black people. So, just to let you know, black people between the ages of 18 and 24 years old are 4 times more likely to be an inpatient in a psychiatric hospital. I bet you didn't know that. I always wonder, if we're a minority, how the hell are we the majority going into a psychiatric hospital? Doesn't make sense to me. Just saying. We are twice as likely to be detained under the Mental Health Act than a white person. Again, we're a minority, but still somehow we're more than our white counterpart, which is our majority in this country, and more or less the world. It doesn't make sense. So I've had a lot of black boys that have come into the hospital and I've seen them, observed them. There's been a few of them that have come in for smoking weed, and then they are labelled with drug-induced psychosis. Yes, weed may have a factor. I'm not a doctor, so I can't say for definite. However, there are a lot of other factors that go into that. What's their upbringing like, their home life? What's their school life? How are they treated by their parents? Do they have parents? Does anybody care for them? Does anybody take time for that child? Do they not? So then they meet people, they say, hey, have a bit of this, have a smoke. We might smoke, the child might not agree with that. They're too young because their brain is not formed yet. They then go into hospital. Drugged up. Oh. Sorry. Oh. Hello. They're drugged up, and then does this problem really get resolved because they're just labelled with, psychosis from smoking weed? But actually, what about all the other factors like the therapy? We do therapy, but it's not enough. We need therapy first from the community. We don't have to end up in hospital for the last result. So if I have an issue, I should be able to go to my GP, the community team. There should be even a role model, an elder like we had. Like, hi Starboy, we had Starboy when I was growing up, and Lennox and Jay. Everyone from the Roundhouse must know these guys. So we had those people. So it's now for us to help and recognise and look for those signs for the children that are in need. Right now, this generation is going to be phenomenal. This generation is taking over. We now are the elders to now look out for them, to make sure it's not the same as it has been. I'm just going to give you an example of an injustice I witnessed at my work. I won't say the names because of confidentiality, so I'll change the names. So this is between two staff members. One of the staff members, I will call him Tony, he's black, and David, he's white. So David, there was a patient that had an allegation against David. David had come in front of a patient, a female, and was standing too close. That patient felt very, very uncomfortable. She reported it. So that was David. So now Tony and on a night shift, Tony was observing the patient, the same patient, asleep. So when she's asleep, we need to check to make sure they're breathing okay. So if anyone knows that if you're looking to see if someone's breathing, it takes about 10, 15, maybe even 20 seconds to stare at someone to make sure their body's going up and down to make sure they're alive. So that's what Tony was doing. Tony was then, another patient reported Tony for staring at the female patient. So Tony now was suspended from work for a few weeks, or even over a month actually, but he didn't get told why. The only reason he found out was because of the union. His union told him. However, David has had a few allegations against him. David had a small chat with our manager, and the manager said, be careful, don't worry, just, you gotta just be careful, be mindful what you do. And then David then got moved to another unit to work, whereas Tony now had to be off work for over a month, and that'll be on his record. I'm just saying, there's definitely injustice there, and that's a mental health hospital, and that's with staff. It goes around everywhere, and as black people, we don't like always to go and get help. Because we're prideful people. We don't want to seem weak, and there's nothing like that. But when we're going to see somebody in a hospital, and we've got somebody that doesn't understand our culture, that doesn't understand anything about us, how am I going to sit there and tell you about my life, my pain, my struggle? It doesn't make sense. I want to speak to someone that might look like me, or even have an understanding about me, but don't judge me just because of the colour of my skin. Don't judge me, and that's just because of that. Look at me as a person. It could be to any of you lot out there. We get judged all the time. I get this all the time. Oh, you sound like a white girl. You sound really good. Yeah, I know. I speak well. I've been brought up in High Wycombe, born and bred. That's how I speak, but I'm very black at heart. I love my culture. I love my people. And I will fight this for my whole life. This is my generation, my children to come, their children, and even more, and all of you lot as well. But we need to look out for each other, support, talk. Don't act like it doesn't exist, because it's been existing. And I'm tired of going for job interviews and pretending to be this uppity person. I'm tired! I've got an interview tomorrow, but watch me. I'm like, hi guys, how's everyone tomorrow?
You're gonna smash it!
But thank you all.
Thank you, Dana. Yes. I think we're at the stage now where has anyone lost some car keys? Got some Audi car keys? If not, I think I've got a new whip tonight. The police are over there. I didn't steal it. Yeah? Is that hands up? Oh yeah, so there's a lady in there. Thank you. So, okay, I think we're going to open up the mic and the stage for people to come up and just say their piece. Obviously, there's no pressure to come up here. I know what it's like speaking in front of people. And the councillor. Right, yeah, so my brother here would like to say a few words. Give him a round of applause and make him feel welcome.
Hello everybody, Black Lives Matter. I'm here today. I decided to take my day off of the work, so just to come here. So it's an important day for us and for this time. So this is a time of the change, time that we can feel proud of ourselves, time that we can show love to each other and appreciate the fact that being black is good. There's nothing wrong with that. So it's all right. Actually, I'm new in this town. I've been living before in Liverpool, and one of the things that I decided to change to be here is because there is not a lot of black people over there. So I used to feel like a bit weird, just walk and see, oh, where are the black people here? I wouldn't see a lot of them there. So I was like, okay, I gotta go somewhere that there is black people, more black people. So I'm here and I'm happy. It's a good town. Lately I've been expressing a lot with friends that we should support our black brothers in many ways. Business, I try to spend my money in black business in a way to support their business. We should have this attitude to be support to each other. We don't need to hate each other. We don't need to express hate. We can even be like nice to each other without hate. I think as we work sometimes with white people, sometimes we work with them, they smile at us, they talk with us, but they are not our friend. We just need to be professional at work and carry on our life, you know? And be good to each other. Our people, we should show more love to each other without that feeling of hate. My background, I'm coming from Africa. I speak Portuguese, so I'm not Caribbean, but but we are all black. So I wish we could love each other more and try to be together and try to be more nice to each other. So Black Lives Matter.
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 What do we want?
Justice.
What do we want?
Justice.
When do we want it?
Now.
What else do we want?
Justice.
What do we want?
Justice.
And when do we want it?
Now.
It's action time. Next up, I think we've got a councillor that would like to say a few words. So, is that Sade? Oh, Sister Sade, councillor for High Wycombe. She, yeah, give her a warm welcome, everyone.
Good afternoon, everybody.
Good afternoon.
My name is Sade Ado. I'm one of the councillors at the council. I'm just so glad to see everybody here today, and the same at Milo. All the people that have spoken today have spoken well. I just want people to know that, as Brother Filmo said, we are human beings at the end of the day. It is what we do, how we do it, when we do it, that matters. Irrespective of your religion, what you believe it to be. If you see racism in any shape or form, and I think I go somewhere along the road with Brother Filmo about this race is in issue. We're looking at discrimination, we're looking at prejudice. If I say something that is going to impact another person of color, for whatever reason, to benefit myself, that is discrimination. That is terrible. If I'm going to say or do anything that is going to hold anybody down, that is going to hold them back, and that is historical, that is discrimination, that is prejudice. And that is what we all have to stand against. And that is why Black Lives Matter. I want to honor everybody here. I can see Venita's daughter has spoken. I can see Dion, Yvette Thomas. These are people that have worked in the community. There's Filma, there's Brother Golden, there's Brother Fred, Sadia, Prima. These are people that are doing good work in the community.
And I want to bring to your attention to the Hilltop, the community center, where people can go to and learn about different things. And you know the thing is, I always say to people, I've been a governor in some of the schools, my boys went to school here, they're still here. And one of the reasons I decided to stand as a councillor is because I believe, and I still hold that firmly in my heart, that you have to be at the table in order to influence the decision. You have to be at the table to be part of the policy-making process. I cannot make a decision or talk about you if I don't know you, if I don't know the pain, if I haven't walked in your shoes like Bilal said yesterday. But if you're not there, I'm human, I'm a human being. I can think about what it shouldn't be. But when I hear it directly from you, and you are at that table, it makes it easier for me to understand. And then we can therefore work together and put it right. And it is about the human race, it is about us. Because if I'm uncomfortable, I will act it out. And I can tell you, you will be uncomfortable. That is the truth. And that is the truth that we all have to look to. So I want to thank everybody here today. I want to thank all these ladies and gentlemen who have spoken so well. And like you said, I experienced that trauma cannot be us. We've got to live above it. We've got to sort of put it behind and take that step forward to the future. So I just want to acknowledge everybody. And like I said to you guys yesterday, I am here and we all can come together to make it work. And that is the work we have to do. Please, there's Prima here, she's got a database going. And it's not about, you know, the Caribbean, the African, the Pakistani, it's about how can we come together to work together, put your name on that database, and together we can make it work. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. I think we got some, wow, this is inspiring. Yeah, we got some speakers, some people want to say their piece, so without further ado, we've got some sisters here. By the way, we're sticking to the whole, the COVID measures of social distancing. I want to thank you lot for adhering to that, yeah? And we're also changing the mic heads, in case there's any press here. We're doing it the right way, yeah? We're sanitizing everything, so big up.
Hi everyone, I'm glad to see everyone out here. I work for the prison system and mental health system as well. And every day I see the distraction between how black people are treated and how white people are treated mentally and physically. And I just felt like I had to say something today, and I've made my work colleagues feel very uncomfortable. I've been quite vocal for the last few days now, just so that they know my experience. But I was just talking to my uncles, who I would say are probably like the elder people of Wycombe, and I was saying that there was a day that my brother, he was probably about 13 or 14, and he was over at the school field. He wasn't in Wycombe, but he was in another area which was predominantly white, and the police were called, and everyone that was arrested that night, there was only 2 people arrested out of all the white boys that were over there. My brother was arrested and a Greek boy was arrested. And I'd never thought anything of it at the time, but now I'm thinking that when he was arrested, they didn't believe that he wasn't 18. They thought he was lying. So they arrested him and they put him in a jail cell, and he was only 14 and he hadn't done anything wrong. He was just over the school field. So they said they couldn't question him till a suitable adult had come, and I didn't want to tell my mum, so I sneaked out the house when I saw the police car, and I jumped in. I said, I'm a suitable adult, I'm 18, I can stand with him. They put me in a jail cell. So they left me with my brother, and I didn't think anything. I thought that's what happens when you're a suitable adult and you have to wait till the next morning to be interviewed. You sit in a jail cell. So I sat in a jail cell, my brother was crying, I sat in a jail cell, I used the jail cell toilet, and I never really thought anything of it, but it literally was because we were black.
And that was the only reason. And then the next morning he was interviewed. Nothing came of it. He was let go. I ended up having to ring my mum to come and get me because I didn't drive at the time. So I had to expose all the details that he was arrested. But it was just the thinking of, but that was people's thinking. But I'm now in a position, I think, where I can change people's thinking. Because sometimes it's not always racism. Sometimes it's just ignorance. So I think everyone has to do it, black, white. There is some people that just need an education on how to act with black people and how to treat them. So let's not make the mistake that it's just racism. Some of it is ignorance. Some of us don't know how to interact with any other races sometimes because we've been told certain stories or we've grown up in certain things and we have this idea, or we see the way other people are treated and we take that as precedent on how people are. And I think that's what happens with black people. Black people are taken, you believe certain things of black people, it's not actually true. If you take the time to educate yourself, talk to a black person, find out where they're from, what their struggle is, what they've been through, then you will learn to understand that black lives do matter and that we're all human beings at the end of the day. I just felt like I had to say something.
Thank you so much. Thank you. We've got a brother now who I thought was taking some good pictures of me earlier, but he's here to talk and say a few words, so make him feel welcome.
Hello. Okay. I'm not much of a public speaker, but I thought I should come here and say something from my own experiences. And I wasn't born in the UK. I came to the UK when I was 14. I came to the UK as an immigrant from Zimbabwe, and what I quickly realized was the color of my skin mattered. It wasn't my educational attainment that mattered. It wasn't my temperament that mattered. It was how I interacted with other people. It wasn't the fact that just because I'm overzealous and I'm loud and whenever I'm in a conversation, my voice tends to be raised. That is what mattered when interactions with other people came to being. And I know that most of us feel the same way because that is what we're like in our households. I know that some of us that are between the ages of 14 and 15 have probably spent days in isolation at school because, you were in class with another person and you were the one that was picked out for being too loud. I know that some of us who have gone to university have experienced institutional racism from merely just walking at university, and people assuming that just because you're in this high institution, you must not belong in there. Just because I walked into a lecture room with my hoodie up, that does not mean that I'm not a student of this faculty. I have now come to the realization that even though I am studying law, even though my little brother is studying computer science, even though my sister is studying medicine, sometimes when we're applying for jobs, is the very fact that we have African names and we're from African descent. It's gone to the point where I've been asked, why don't you use your middle name because it's English? Why don't you post a picture of yourself next on your CV? I've had some of my cohorts getting the same jobs that I've applied for, and when it comes down to it, we all hold it in, but we all understand that we all understand that sometimes it's not just your educational attainment. Sometimes people see your name. Sometimes people see what you are and then immediately make a judgment on that. We are smart and we are not dumb. We are people that can attain a lot. We have people that are willing to attain a lot, and we need people that are on the table with the qualifications that we have to show that yes, this is our culture, to show a representation of where we come from and who we are, because at the moment we are lacking that, and at the moment that is what we need.
Well said. I don't know who's next. I think you were next. Thank you.
Rachel, this is really scary. But I just wanted to say that I'm 16. I was born and raised in the UK, and actually, weirdly, me and my sister were talking about in the 16 years I've lived, I've never actually experienced racism in front of my own eyes. And once, actually, recently, about 6 months ago, I did at school, and we all tried to stop it, but they didn't listen to us. But I just wanted to say that actually now that I have a black girl, I am lesbian, by the way, I have a black girl, and I've just been opened to a whole new world of racism, and it's so crazy. She will tell me things, and I'm like, how can this happen, like, in 2020? It's so crazy. And actually, funnily enough, she got arrested 6 months ago. She was 17 in a pub with one of her white friends, and she got arrested for being underage. But the bartender knew that the white girl that was her friend was also underage. She got pepper sprayed to the ground, literally hit. It's honestly, it breaks my heart to say it. It's so emotional. But she got pulled to the ground, pepper sprayed all over her eyes. She was begging for water, and they'd done nothing. She got arrested, she got rang to the police station, and the next day, what did they arrest her for? Nothing. They couldn't even think of a reason they arrested her for. It was because she was violent towards the police, but she didn't resist arrest. She was compliant with what they said. And this is the world we're living in today. And I think for literally everybody's mental health, we need to all stick together. All races, any religion, all together. I think that's so important. Thank you.
Thank you, well said. We've got some police in attendance today, so I hope they're listening. We can all do better, yeah? We're not saying all policemen are bad, but you know the ones that are, and you can fix it. So speak up. When we're saying speak up, I'm not just talking to the crowd, I'm talking to you lot as well. You're here to serve and protect, so do your jobs. We got 10 minutes left, so I've got a brother ready to... Yes,
Hi, so my name is Ty. I echo the same sentiments as everyone else, really, not the best public speaker. But this has been, it's been an interesting couple of months for me, actually. Just thinking about sort of the whole movement itself and my own personal experiences in life. So I'd say I'm really fortunate. I've had lots of unique experiences. One of those being that actually for the last couple of years I've been living in New York. So I guess I have a unique perspective in terms of what is the comparison between living in the US and living in the UK related to race issues. And I think the thing that's universal wherever you go in the world, and I think a lot of black people and people of every ethnic minority will understand this as well, that we're in a very unique position, you know? I've traveled to many countries in the world, and I think almost every country that I travel to, one of my first thoughts are, is it okay for me to travel there as a black person? I have to do my own research on it, I have to understand what the challenges are for me, which I think in 2020 is particularly, well, it's just egregious, really. I think the second point as well, which I think is a really important one, and a few people have raised this, it all stems from education, and it all stems from having a true understanding of history, not the understanding of history that pushes supremacy of one culture or one race over the other, but a true sense of what history actually is. So when we think of the human story involves the black story. So I can give you just a few adages here that I suspect that many people aren't even aware of. You know, as this debate goes on and it roars on, you see people talking about World War II, and there's a huge issue about Winston Churchill and his statue. But most people aren't aware that in World War II, 600,000 people from West Africa were involved in World War II. 1.2 million Indians. It was a world war for a reason. Yes, the British played a huge, significant role in that win. But so did the Americans, so did the Russians, so did all of the colonial countries at that time as well. So this is just one example of the failure of history to truly include the black story. And when you don't include people in the story and you don't tell the truth about the way things are, it allows people to create this idea of supremacy. Another example, which I suspect most people aren't aware of, is when we think in a modern day society of what essentially translates to being superior or being the best, it's often related to money, which is very sad. But if I asked you who the richest people in the world were, you would tell me who they are. Most people have no idea that in the 14th century, the richest person to ever live in human history is a black man. Mansa Musa is someone that no one in this country is even aware of historically, but if you took your time to take a look at that and to understand the history and the culture, you would understand that if someone like that in the 14th century was admired by many cultures and many civilizations across Europe, you'd understand that black people have always played a part in the idea of what it is to be a human being. So I guess my final point is this. When you start to think about things like that and you truly dissect sort of the facts and you truly dissect history, what you start to understand is that race in itself is an absolute social construct. It doesn't exist. My name is Ty, I was born in the UK, I'm a proud Brit, but I'm also born to Nigerian parents, I'm also Nigerian. I have many identities. They're the same identities as you. You are my brothers, you are my sisters, regardless of race. We're all one together. So the final point I would make is the way to move forward for all of us is really about understanding each other, but also understanding that black people are the same as you. We are exceptional, we are brave, we are sad, we are fearful, we often get hurt. We are all the same, just like any other race and any other community. Thank you so much. Black Lives Matter.
Thank you, bro. He's a good footballer as well. Yeah, we've got two more guest speakers, so. Yeah. Black Lives? Glad you're still awake. Got a few more minutes left. If you haven't had the opportunity to go up and put your name down, please do so at the end. And again, thank you all for coming out, yeah? It's much appreciated, and this is just the start. I know many of you have got questions of what we're actually going to be doing, but all will be revealed. Just stick with us and go ahead, bro.
All right, cheers. I'm not so good in front of a mic, but I'm going to do my best. I'll try and keep it quick as well. I grew up in Penn. I went to the grammar school up on the hill, GS. And I guess music's my thing. I've always been into music. Like I love a bit of Bach, a bit of Mozart, all those guys. And that was my thing. And I went off to uni. I was going to go to Durham University. I don't know if anyone's.
I went to Durham.
Went up there, yeah. Yeah, I bet they probably got a Black Lives Matter protest up there, but there's probably like 15 people. It's pretty remote. Yeah, a lot of gowns, a lot of choirs going to cathedrals and stuff. It's a lot of history, I guess. And before I went there, I went to this summer camp in America. It's a thing. I guess white parents and their kids to do. I went to New York, and there's a lot of inner city kids that were going to grow up to have, I don't know what kind of life. Like I just can't relate to it. Like there was all the white kids like looking after, trying to do their best, but just having no idea what life was like. And so when I got to Durham, it was like something wasn't right. So it's a weird place. I lasted like a year and I dropped out. So I realised that the music that they taught there, it's not like what music is. It's like a tradition. It's Eurocentric. Like I don't know what was it saying. Like all right, okay, I'll cut it short. So I stay at Brighton now, and man, Brighton is like a world away from Durham. It's like a complete opposite kind of place, and I didn't know what it was like before, but it's nice. Brighton's a good place, and like these last few weeks have been pretty pretty therapeutic, pretty like spiritual, I guess. And I guess so I've got this ring on my finger. It's a solid gold ring, and it's. Can I finish up? Yeah, Black Lives Matter. And I realised that the thing that's important isn't like who you are. I don't want to be defined by this like colonial history. The important thing is culture. It's not the colour of your skin. It's being the culture you've been raised on, being the people that made you who you are, that got us to this point in history. Yeah, that's it. Go out, do your thing. Be who you are.
Thank you, man. Thank you. Done well. Done well. One more. Yeah, go on, bro.
Hello? Okay. No justice?
No peace.
And why? What does that mean? You know? Because some might take that as a declaration of war, as perhaps something of a threat, but it's not. It's that justice and peace are fundamentally indivisible from each other. You know, we're here today, and I'm apparently the last. Very privileged. Thank you, by the way. Well done, guys. This is my third one of these. And we're here today because we saw a black man get executed on camera, and a lot of people didn't do anything about it. And that's not the only time that's happened. It's not the last, and it's far, far from the first. Because why? It's 2020, right? We shouldn't be here. We should be doing much better than this. We should be way past it. 32 years ago, Dr. Dre, MC Ren, DJ Yella, all those, Eazy-E, they wrote a song called F the Police. Why did they do that? They did that because for hundreds of years in America, black men have always a little bit had to fear for their lives. Not because they randomly decided that the police today should be the target of their ire. And 32 years later, nothing's changed, really. I'm 27. Not much has changed in my lifetime. I think we deserve better, and we do. But we only get better. We can only have better. This can only mean something if we actually actively participate in the change we want to see, and that means calling out your racist friends, yes, but it also means not supporting political actors who act only in bad faith.
That's right.
Who call black people pickaninnies with watermelon smiles and Muslim women letterboxes. And I don't mean to be divisive, I don't. But we can't pretend that's okay. We should not erase that bit of history, because if we do, how are we supposed to move forward? I mean, we've had a lot of talk of late about this Winston Churchill. And he was, we must admit and we must be honest, he was a genocidal white supremacist who also saved the UK. He won the war. That's confusing. That's complex. And we mustn't look at things as black and white like that. He isn't just a genocidal ethnic cleanser, and he isn't just a war hero. Why not both, you know? And we can do that, and we should look at other people like that as well. Because a lot of racists, they just don't know better. They just don't know better. And the big problem actually isn't racism, it's corruption, okay? Because there are some very, very rich people, and there's only 1% of them that run all of this and benefit greatly from keeping us all down. Did you know? Here's a little fact. 1% run the planet, but it only takes 3% of a population to crumble an empire, okay? There are way more of us than them. And my last point, time is on our side. Time is on our side. If you look at the state of the US election, young people, overwhelmingly, 85% of young people who voted for Bernie Sanders, and much the same for Jeremy Corbyn, whether or not you agree with them. Time is on our side. That's everybody under 45. In 20 years' time, it will be normal to be progressive. We have got a long way to go, and progress, as I always say, is slow-gress, okay? But we do win in the end. You'll notice that slavery isn't a thing anymore. That's because young people, students, working class people thought, we don't want this. And people thought that. People said, yeah, but I need to own these niggas, you know? I need it. That's the way it's been for me. And eventually, we defeated slavery as well, you know? So I could have many other thousands of things to say, but I think we've all probably got to go home. Certainly I do. So thank you for listening to me. Well done. Be proud of yourselves.
Thanks for stepping up, man. Thank you. We got to wrap up now. We're done, but the fight is not done. We're by no means finished. We're just getting started. We're going to use the history to help us, from our past experiences to help us to move forward. I need everyone to unite. When I say this, we need to. For our kids, for my kids, for your kids. Doesn't matter if you're black, brown, white, yellow, man them, gal them, brothers, sisters. We need to unite as one, yeah? Come together. Community is communication and unity. Say it. Communication and unity. Communication and unity. Communication and unity. Let's talk more, let's do more, and let's start now. We are the generation to make the change.
Believe that. The change we want to see. There are people there that are taking details. From here on, we want to set up a community service where we can help the youngsters, help the youth understand what they're facing at the moment and help create that change. So please speak to them on the side there and give your details if you want to be part of it. Black Lives Matter.
Black Lives Matter.
Black Lives Matter.
Black Lives Matter.
No justice.
No peace.
No justice.
No peace.
Enough is enough.
Enough is enough.
Enough is enough.
Enough is enough.
Thank you.
Oh, hold on. Yvonne, please, I need this for my soul. For my soul. We need a little song, you know. That's a little one, you know.
Which one?
You know the one we sang? You know the one. Come on. Who knows Bob Marley? And believe me, this is not a show. This is a show that we're united. Yeah? We can be united in song. We can be united in life.
I want everybody to sing. You all know the words. Don't worry about a thing, 'cause every little thing gonna be alright. Singing don't worry about a thing. Come on, clap hands. 'Cause every little thing gonna be alright. Rise up this morning, smile at the rising sun. 3 little birds by my doorstep, singing sweet songs. Come on, D. A rhythm as pure and true. Singing, this is my message to you and you and you. One more time. Singing, don't worry about a thing. Don't worry about a thing. Every little thing is gonna be alright. I sing and don't worry about a thing. Don't you worry about a thing. Every little thing is gonna be alright. Black Lives Matter. Black Lives Matter.
Black Lives Matter.
Black Lives Matter.
Black Lives Matter.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.